Working on guitar repair, which is what you do a lot, what do you find are common problems that you have to deal with?
Neglect by the owners.
Warped neck.
A lot of people drop or knock their guitars over, which snap the headstock.
I've done that.
I do a lot of headstock repair.
Yeah.
A little bit of restoration on older instruments that people get handed down from their families, but a lot of the cheaper, inexpensive guitars from the factories have poor fretwork, and I do a lot of fret leveling and good instruments that gigging musicians play a lot. I do refrets. They wear the frets out because they play constantly. I do a lot of electronic repair on electric guitars. People changing their pickups want to change the sound of their Les Paul or their Strat. You know, they want more beefy sounds, so they'll bring them to me and I'll put different pickups in them. A lot of setups. A guitar is a piece of wood. It moves. Wood expands and contracts, so it changes. The neck changes with seasons, so it needs a truss rod adjustment. It needs reset up after a while. People stick them in the trunks of their cars. It gets subjected to heat, so it expands and contracts, and things get out of whack. So they got to be readjusted.
Where's the best place to store a guitar? I know you're supposed to keep it in a case, but say you don't have a case. What can you do to help preserve the guitar?
Well, you want to keep it humidified, number one. You don't want it to dry out. That's why you see these little humidifiers. Some of them will go in the sound hole. Basically, they're a sponge that you fill up with water, so the guitar will absorb that moisture and keep it at a certain humidity. When a guitar dries out, it cracks.
And when it cracks, it sounds pretty bad, huh?
Yep, it could become unplayable, and then you have to bring it to me and spend a lot of money to fix it.
Yeah.
And then if you got a cheaper guitar, it might not be worth fixing. There's a lot of guitars built these days that are throwaways. You pay $200 for one, when it breaks, you throw it away and buy another one.
So in your mind, are guitars getting better or worse? I know that it's subjective, but what have you noticed?
Well, overall, I don't think production guitars have got much better. I think hand builders have been making better guitars just because of the technology and because of what they can, as a repair person, you can see what fails on older instruments over time, what things do. A lot of guys are using carbon graphite these days. I just inlaid carbon graphite in that guitar neck, which gives you remove wood, which removes weight and mass, and you inlay carbon graphite in the neck, which creates a super stiff neck. So this neck will never warp with that those two carbon graphite rods in there. There'll be a truss rod in the middle that you can adjust relief with. So a lot of guys are using carbon graphite in their necks, which make their necks a lot stiffer. They can make a lighter neck, which will help tone. A lot of guys are using carbon graphite in their bracing. They're sandwiching thin layers of carbon graphite in between two pieces of spruce. And you have a lot of guys, a lot of companies these days are being real innovative, moving their sound holes. Like the McPherson guitar moved their sound hole to the side, and they created a whole new kind of bracing. They went away from the Martin X bracing and created their own design, which they say increases tone. I haven't played a McPherson, but I've heard them on stage, and they sound great. So there's a lot of modern thinking in handmade guitars these days. Some guys have stayed real traditional. I make some traditional guitars because they're great instruments. This parlor here, I'm building after from a plan of a Martin. It's an old Martin plan. which is a great guitar. So I've always wanted one. I always loved the sound and the smallness of it.
Yeah.
That guitar over there is a more modern style guitar. That's sort of in the style of Michael Greenfield. This guitar will be totally different. It has a bevel. I tapered the top of this guitar. It'll have a cantilever neck on it, which the fretboard will never touch the neck of this guitar. And it'll have a little bit different neck angles. What that does, it pulls more up on the bridge and creates a more harp-like sound to the guitar. So this guitar will sound different than that guitar because it's pulling more up on the bridge instead of rotating the bridge forward and backwards. There's no reason not to, do some modern things and see where you can take your instruments.
This is a banjo uke. What is that?
That is
a cross between a banjo and a ukulele.
Exactly, exactly right. And that's a hand-me-down from a family member that wanted it restored. And when I got it, the head was off, torn, and it's a real calf skin head that you soak this in water and get it pliable, and you stretch it over this little ring, and then it goes back in this instrument here. And of course the bridge was missing, so I'll have to build a handmade bridge for it. And it was generally just had 100 years of crud on it, so I had to take it apart and spend a couple hours cleaning the crud off of it. And getting all the rust off the tuners, so I'll stretch that head on there and put it all back together. I've got it all cleaned up and did a little French polish on it, and just to kind of renew the finish and clean it up. And then I'll get it back to the customer. And this was handed down to a lady by her great-grandmother.
Wow. So how old is that?
I don't know the exact year, but it's pretty old. It's probably pushing 75, 80 years old.
Wow.
And the construction of it's sort of like a barrel.
Okay.
It has all these individual pieces of mahogany and maple put together to make the tone ring, and has a maple neck with a mahogany stripe down the middle. So it's a well-made instrument.
Has this ever inspired you to create your own new instrument?
Yeah, I've thought about a lot of things, but there's some crazy things going on out there right now. There's a lot of guys inventing a lot of crazy stuff, so I'm kind of honing my craft. Every day I learn something new building guitars. It's one of those things that you never stop learning. Sort of like golf, you can never master it. You try to get a little better every day.
There's always something new to learn, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's one of the fun things about it. If you could just learn everything in a week and do it, it'd be boring. What fun would that be?
Right. Although someone might watch this video series and it might give them enough inspiration to just build their own guitar.
yeah, it's catching on with people. I have a lot of my musician friends that want to come and learn and build their own instrument.
All right, Mark, thank you very much for this conversation. It's been very educational.
You're welcome. It was nice having you in the shop.
Thank you.